Who's got the sweetest disposition? One guess who? Who never starts an argument? Who never shows a bit of temperament? Who's never wrong but always right? Who never dream of starting a fight? Who gets stuck with all the bad luck? No one but Donald Duck.
Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Tony Anselmo was born on February 18th, 1960, in the salty, wonderful sand dunes of Salt Lake City, Utah. I assume by name only. I've never been. Unlike most voice actors that we've covered on this channel, Tony was not only a goofball who would practice voices in his spare time, but he was also in love with the process of animation.
I went to see Mary Poppins when I was 4 years old. It was the first movie I ever saw. I hadn't seen a movie yet. I was 4. I saw Mary Poppins, and I walked out of there thinking, wow, the magic, the imagination, and I was asking my dad, how did they talk to animated characters? How did they fly? I was so blown away by that, that I thought, that's what I want to do. That's amazing. I want to be I don't know what that is, but I'm going to find out, and I'm going to go there. And I channeled all my efforts into that. All through high school, I would write Frank and Ollie and Eric Larson, Jack Hanna, letters. And I was amazed, especially thinking back on it, how generous they were to take the time to write back. Take life drawing and acting and design and color. And I did. I took night classes while I was in high school at community centers and colleges and got my portfolio together.
Tony dreamed to someday work at the Disney studio, but his father was very against it. Crazy to think that Mr. Anselmo wouldn't be a fan of discographies, which, by the way, don't be like him. Subscribe below. Anyways, at 17, Tony got permission from his parents to join his friends on a trip to Disneyland. What Tony left out was the fact that he was going to give his portfolio to the Disney studio. These dang teens today and their sneaky portfolio dropping-offing.
They looked at my portfolio and they said, well, we'd like you to work here, but we want you to go to CalArts first. And I said, I'd love to go to CalArts, but my dad won't let me. He forbids it. And they said, well, step outside in the lobby there and give us a minute. And I thought, oh, it's over. There's no way I can do this. And as I was sitting there, this very tall, good-looking man walked by. It was Ron Miller. He walked into that room, and he was in there for 15 minutes. And then he walked back out, and he looked at me and nodded and gave me a thumbs up and walked out. And I thought, what was that about? And they called me back in, and they said, well, we're going to send you to CalArts on the Disney Family Fellowship. So the Disney family generously paid for me to go to CalArts, which I am forever indebted.
That's awesome.
To them. Yeah, it was. I mean, I was blown away. So they gave me a letter, and I showed it to my dad, and he's like, oh, damn it.
At CalArts, Tony met many Disney legends who would teach him, including Ken O'Connor, Bill Moore, Elmer Plummer, and the man who showed the most interest in Tony, Jack Hanna, or as we call them, the cool kids. At the end of each year, students would show their films, and Disney execs would watch and pick who they liked. After Tony's second year at CalArts, he had an interesting encounter.
And I was standing behind a pillar, and Jack was on the other side of the pillar. I don't think he knew that I could hear him. And he was talking to one of the executives from Disney. And he said, I really think you ought to take a good look at this Tony Anselmo, because he really cares about this stuff. He's dedicated. And I thought, oh my God, he's like, there were other things at CalArts that Jack, like we would bring him our story, and he would look at it and, give us ideas and stuff. And then the next day, I remember once he came up to me and he said, I was thinking about your story. What if you tried? And I thought, you're thinking about my story? You know, I was always amazed that I thought I got a long way to go. And these are Disney legends, and he's thinking about my story. He was really like a father to me. He was such an amazing mentor to me.
Soon after, Tony finally achieved his dream.
And then I was hired as an in-betweener, although I was put into a training thing that they don't really do anymore, where we were with Eric Larson and
one of the nine old men,
Ken O'Connor, Teehee, a lot of the Disney legends. We were in training before we were ever put on production once we got to the studio. This was after CalArts. So for 8 months, I was up in a room with other artists animating with Eric Larson. He would give us tests to do.
Tony's first full project with Eric was Mickey's Christmas Carol.
You know, working on Mickey's Christmas Carol was such a joy to me because it was working with Eric Larson on those standard characters. And that I was in the room. You know that picture of Walt and Eric Larson in the hallway where Eric was directing Sleeping Beauty?
Yes.
That was Eric's hallway, and that's where we trained, in those open doors behind him in that picture. And I was in the room right next to Eric Larson. We would work on test scenes, and we'd bring it into him, and, you know, we'd work so hard trying to figure it out, and he'd bring it into him, and he'd put it on the desk and take a pencil and hardly touch it and just say, well, what if you did this? And you could see this magic come off the paper and go, oh, my God, I don't know what I'm doing.
Tony moved on to assisting for the epic blockbuster hit and maybe the most well-known Disney project, The Black Cauldron. But while at the studio, he made a friend who would be very important to his life.
It wasn't anything that I actually intended to do, but as I said, it really was a small family. Everybody knew everybody. And the first day I was on the lot, I was walking up Dopey Drive, and a man came down the steps of the animation building, 5'2", white hair, passed me, and he goes, "Good morning." And I, in a split second, I had never met him before, and I had never seen who did Donald's voice. So to hear that distinctive voice coming out of a man who I hadn't met before was shocking. But at the same moment, it was like, that's Donald Duck. It would have been like, you know, being at MGM and seeing Clark Gable. Mm-hmm. In fact, Walt called Donald the Gable of our stable because he was their main character. You know, he was the most popular character. Well, over time, everyone was friends, and Clarence was a good friend, and doing voices and being the class clown, Donald was a voice that I couldn't do, and I asked him for fun, you know, how do you do that? And he showed me, and I couldn't do it, but I would practice from time to time, and any voice person will tell you the best place to practice is in the car or in the shower. And one day it kind of clicked in, and I thought, oh, I think that I did it.
Was it the car or the shower?
The car.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, it was the car. Mm-hmm. So I went, the next time I saw Clarence, I said, is this it? And he goes, yeah, that's it. But it was just the sound, and there's much more to it, you know, how to enunciate as much as possible. It wasn't until really, he was supposed to do the Rose Parade. In his 50th year, I think Ducky got the attention and the acclaim that he had, I think, always deserved. Mm-hmm. To celebrate Donald's 50th birthday, he put his hand and footprints in the Chinese Theater. He was on The Tonight Show, the Academy Awards, and he was supposed to do the Rose Parade. And I didn't know that he was sick. He had gotten leukemia. And I went to the Rose Parade, and he wasn't in the car. And Margie Nash called and said that he was in the hospital. So I went to the hospital to visit, and he told me, and he said, and you're going to do this. And it all came at the same time, and I was like, you know, I thought, you're dying, and you want me to do that? You know, no, I don't want you to die, and no, I want you to do this.
And how long did he live after that?
Not long. But the odd thing about it was, for a period of about 6 months before that, I thought it was just because we were friends and he thought it was fun. He would come in my room in the animation building when I was drawing, and he would say, try this, or what would you do if Donald had to be in this situation, what would you say? Or, you know, say this. And I would go, okay, and I thought it was fun. I really didn't think he was spending the time, you know, I felt like he had taken me under his wing, to use a corny phrase, but I didn't know why he was spending so much time with me.
And in hindsight, I see now that, you know, afterwards, that he was making sure I could do it before he told me. I never did the voice when he was alive. And when I did record after his passing, things would come up that I didn't have an answer for. But fortunately, Jack Hanna, who was the director of the Donald Duck unit under Walt, lived many more years after that. And he was my mentor drawing Donald and animating and everything else at Cal Arts. And we were very close, and I could go to Jack and ask him those questions.
Jack Hanna, or as we call him, one of the cool kids, was a director at Disney best known for his Donald Duck shorts. Can you tell us any more, Tony?
He was a character, but he was like a father figure to me, because he really took care of me. He not only in just showing me the tricks of the trade and about Donald and animation, Disney animation. You know, I owed just about everything to him to getting into the studio. He was a kind of a rough and tumble kind of guy, and he had these catchphrases and things that he kind of talked like this, and they called it the duck. It wasn't Donald Duck. It was, well, you got the duck there, and he comes around the corner, and he got a cocky little walk, and he had a stop. He would work with a metronome and a stopwatch so that they could synchronize with the music better. It had everything had kind of a beat, whether it was Donald walking or him. His mannerisms would sync up with the music. So he always had a stopwatch, and he'd say, well, the duck will come down the stairs, hop, pop, pop. You got a puff of dust, 5 seconds.
Tony was in the extremely unique position to not only voice Mr. Duck, but also animate him.
That's the greatest joy for me, when I could record the voice and animate to my own recordings, which I had the pleasure of doing on Prince and the Pauper. I did it, and there was a television show called Funny You Don't Look 200 with Richard Dreyfuss about the American Constitution that I animated and cleaned up Donald and did the voice. And then later on Mickey and the Three Musketeers, which is one of the best things that I got to work on with Donovan Cook, who's also a really talented director. I wish he could do some more. I would love to work with him again. And things here and there, little pieces. So it was always a pleasure to record the voice and think in my mind how I would animate it, and then animate it later, remembering what I was thinking. And then I had complete control of the character. And that's only been done. The only other people that did that were Milt Kahl and Freddie Moore in Ferdinand the Bull.
Tony continued to work in animation. Most notably, he was a director of animation on the wardrobe in Beauty and the Beast. And the hardest part was finding a suit that fit him. Well
now, what shall we dress you in for dinner? Oh, let's see what I got in my drawers. Oh, how embarrassing.
Tony worked on every Disney movie from Black Cauldron to Home on the Range, mostly as a key animator or lead key animator. Unfortunately, Tony wasn't immune to the phasing out of traditional animation at Disney. He worked on a few other movies like The Three Musketeers and the Heffalump movie, but after 2005, his animation tapered off. Honestly, mostly due to his heavy workload with Donald. The daunting doings of the duck didn't dwindle. Speaking of the duck...
That's me!
Yeah, Donald, we've finally gotten to you.
Let's go!
Okay. Tony's first performance as Donald was on the same episode that Bill Farmer first performed Goofy, on a DTV Valentine episode. From there, he moved on to DuckTales in 1987 and Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 1988, where he got to work with the Mel Blanc.
The greatest memory of that was that I got to work with Mel Blanc together. And I think it was one of the last things he did. So I was in awe being able to do the scene. You know, Robert Zemeckis was directing us. He said, this is what I want. And Mel would do Daffy and I would do Donald, and that was amazing.
Does anybody understand what this duck is saying?
Tony is keeping the trick to performing Donald's voice a secret, but he has dropped a few hints here and there.
It's really not a voice, it's a magic trick that I do with a technique that that's secret. But so I don't use my vocal cords, so I can have laryngitis and still do Donald Duck. But if I have a head cold and my sinuses aren't clear, or if I've had any kind of dental work done, that can really mess it up for a week.
But if you're serious about cracking the code on the voice, you should know there are a few caveats and limitations.
We'd get a script, and I would bring it home and go over it, and Donald just can't say everything. It's a very limited vocabulary to be understood.
Yeah.
So I would take the script and not change the premise or the idea, just the words, so that they could be, for enunciation. For example, Donald cannot say R's. So if you get a script and it has rear, you won't understand it. So I'll change it to last, which is very clear.
Okay.
What would be a tough word for Donald, for instance?
Well, it's funny. Sometimes big words like is a long, big word, or is pretty clear. But short words with R's or soft consonants like rules, it won't come out.
Donald is just more complicated in every way, and I have to apologize, but there's nothing you can do about it. I can't eat for 2 hours before, so there isn't saliva, so I can get a clear sound, and I have to be up for a few hours so that my sinuses are clear, because that's where the air escapes. And I can only do the voice for about 2 hours, depending on what it is. If it's little lines like, "Oh boy, well, that's that. I can't do it." Stuff like that, it's okay. But if it's tantrums or yelling, it cuts it down, because what happens is my tongue starts to swell up from the pressure. And when you get on to about 2 hours, it's really hard it gets harder and harder to get it out. So fortunately, there aren't a lot of lines to do for Donald, which is the way it's supposed to be.
As Tony says, Donald is a reactionary character, so he shouldn't be explaining anything, which makes sense given his gimmick is not being able to understand him.
What's going on?
He just gonna kidnap Princess Minnie so I can become king, because he's really a bad guy. And he has a secret lair, and it's really dark and scary. So the point is, he's gonna kill us if we get in his way, so we should run down as far away as we can.
Donald, I can't understand a word you say.
Donald is an iconic character, and in the 40s surpassed Mickey Mouse in popularity.
I asked Jack this early on, why do you think Donald was so popular? He goes, well, because there's a little bit of Donald in all of us. You get in a situation and you try and do the best you can, and Chip and Dale come along and get in the way, and that's when you get your dander up. Donald isn't an angry character. He just has a temper if you set it off. He sets out to have fun. He loves to play practical jokes and have a good time. It's when, Humphrey the Bear steals his honey that he gets mad.
I felt a great responsibility having been entrusted with that by the original. And because of my loyalty to Walt's legacy and to my friend Clarence and Jack Hanna, I wanted to do them proud. So even to this day, 30 years later, I will, on the way to a session, put in Clarence and listen to Donald recordings to get my head and the pitch and everything else that goes with it. Because I'm all about carrying on what Clarence did. It's not about me making it my own or anything about me. It's about continuing the legacy of Walt and Clarence and Jack.
Tony has also been very protective of Donald, and there are a few shows that he's been involved with that he approves of more than others.
The show that you mentioned, Legend of the Three Caballeros, that's gotten quite a following, and it was made one of the first shows that was made for Disney Plus, and everybody that I meet loves that the most. And the guys that did that show really cared, again, about quality and being on model and being in character. And they would let me go over the script and write it for Donald. And then when they had it all cut in, they'd let me listen to it, and I could hear the takes they picked, and I'd say, oh, I can do that one clearer. And we'd go back in and make it even better. And I think the quality shows when you do it that way.
Another was The Three Musketeers, for which he was able to animate Donald as well as provide the voice. Impressive.
No danger too great.
You said it.
Together we'll save the princess or die trying.
Die?
Tony Anselmo is still going, and he's not doing it for the fame, or the money, or even for fun, although he admits performing the duck is fun. He does it out of obligation. Unlike many of his sensational six colleagues, Tony was not only given Donald to perform, but entrusted with Donald by some of the very people who created him. It is such a heavy burden for one duck to bear, but Tony carries it well, giving Donald a performance that would make his predecessor proud. Here's hoping for many, many more years of Donald laughter, hijinks, and tantrums.
That way, tiger.
Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.
Sure. But where is the boy when you're talking to sheep? He's not going to get